You didn't fall for him overnight. It was the way he looked at you like you were the only woman in the room, the way he listened at first, the way he made you feel safe, wanted, maybe even loved. But then something changed. It wasn't sudden, but it was sharp. He started saying things that made your chest tighten, things that made you question your reality, things that sounded like love but felt like slow rejection. You're too emotional. I never asked you to do all that. Words that made your heart ache, but your mind made excuses. You told yourself to be patient. You tried harder. You stayed longer until you realized you were holding on to a version of him that only existed in the beginning. If you've ever stayed through the silence, the gaslighting, the subtle emotional cuts, this message is for you. Because some words aren't just red flags with their final answers. And you're allowed to walk away when love stops feeling like love. Have you ever heard those 4 words that feel like a punch to the gut? You're too emotional. You were probably in the middle of expressing something real, hurt, confusion, a need for clarity, and suddenly, instead of being met with care, you were dismissed. Not only dismissed, but labeled, as if your emotions were a problem to fix rather than a truth to be held. That moment can cut deep, because what he's really saying is, I don't want to deal with your depth. This phrase is often used by men who haven't learned how to process their own emotions. And when they're faced with yours, especially when it reveals something about the dynamic, they react not with understanding, but with defensiveness. Why? Because vulnerability demands presence, and presence threatens ego. For someone emotionally unavailable, your feelings can feel like pressure. They may trigger discomfort or even shame because they reveal a need for connection, accountability, or empathy. And instead of rising into those things, he escapes through avoidance. He protects himself by turning you into the issue. But here's what you need to know. Being emotional isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your emotions are signals. They speak the truth your mind sometimes tries to silence. When you feel hurt, lonely, or unseen, that isn't drama, it's data. It means something needs to be acknowledged. When a man calls you too emotional, he is often reacting to his inability to meet you where you are. It's a reflection of his emotional ceiling, not your emotional excess. This is not your cue to shrink. This is your cue to see clearly. You are not here to apologize for feeling deeply. You're not meant to tiptoe around your truth to avoid unsettling someone who lacks the courage to face theirs. You deserve to be met by someone who sees your emotional honesty as a bridge, not a burden. So the next time someone tries to shame you for your feelings, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to be with someone who only wants my softness when it's convenient for them? Or do I want someone who can sit with the fullness of me even when it's uncomfortable? That question alone will give you your answer. You're not too emotional. You're just too real for someone who's still hiding from themselves. And one day, someone will not only see that, but value it with their whole heart. Have you ever poured your time, energy, and care into someone only to be met with a cold, careless response like, I never asked you to do all that? It's the kind of sentence that instantly makes your heart drop. Suddenly, everything you gave from love is thrown back at you like a burden, not a gift. It leaves you questioning yourself. Was I wrong for caring? Did I go too far? Should I have held back? But this isn't about you over-giving. This is about someone who lacks the emotional maturity to receive love with responsibility. When a man utters those words, he's not just dodging accountability. He's revealing his emotional limits. He wants the benefit of your presence, your loyalty, your softness, but not the weight of reciprocating. Your care touches a part of him that feels unworthy or perhaps even exposed. Instead of leaning in, he distances himself from the very thing he once welcomed. Why? Because to someone emotionally unavailable, love isn't nourishment, it's pressure. Especially when that love brings with it a mirror to their own inconsistency. Psychologically, this behavior stems from a place of defensiveness rooted in fear. The fear of being needed, the fear of being expected to give what he's not ready or willing to give. So he protects his ego by shifting the blame onto you, as if your generosity was a mistake, not a reflection of your character. But here's the truth: you didn't do too much. You gave too much to someone who could only take. And your willingness to give isn't the problem. It's your unspoken hope that giving more might change someone who was never prepared to receive love in a healthy way. You don't need to chase his validation. You don't need to defend your heart. And you definitely don't need to apologize for loving. Let his words teach you not to stop giving, but to start giving where it's safe, where it's seen, where it's returned with presence, not punishment. Because love shouldn't feel like a mistake. And when someone makes you feel like your care is a burden, they're showing you they were never meant to hold it. You deserve to be met with gratitude, not guilt, with reciprocity, not retreat. So take this as a reminder: the right person will never make you feel foolish for being loyal, kind, or loving. They'll feel honored by it, and they'll show up for you too. Have you ever been vulnerable, honest about your feelings, your needs, your longing for deeper connection, only to be met with a cold question like, "Why do you always need something from me?" That one sentence can sting more than silence. It makes you feel like your emotional needs are too much, like your desire to feel safe, valued, or loved is somehow a flaw. And it plants the dangerous idea that needing someone is something to be ashamed of. But here's the truth: wanting connection isn't neediness, it's humanity. When a man responds this way, it often reveals something much deeper. He may not fully understand the role emotional intimacy plays in a relationship, or worse, he may fear it. To him, emotional openness feels like exposure. So when you express your needs, it activates a defense. Not because you're asking for too much, but because he's not equipped to give more. This is where emotional unavailability hides, behind deflection, behind sarcasm, behind the framing of your love as pressure. Psychologically, men who were taught that strength means self-sufficiency often grow up uncomfortable with emotional closeness. They interpret your vulnerability not as connection, but as demand. Not because it's demanding, but because they never learned how to hold space for anyone's emotions, including their own. So instead of asking why you feel disconnected, they turn the spotlight on you. You become the needy one. You become the problem. And in doing that, they create distance where you were reaching for closeness. But let's be clear, you are not too much for the right person. Your desire to be seen, heard, and emotionally understood is not a weakness. It's a reflection of your strength. It's proof that you're willing to show up fully, not halfway. You don't need to silence your voice just to keep someone comfortable in their avoidance. You don't need to earn care that should already be present. Instead, let this be a turning point, not to harden your heart, but to guard it more wisely. The man who is ready won't make you feel like your needs are a burden. He'll see them as invitations to connect, to grow, to show up. Until then, protect your energy. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for honesty, consistency, and emotional maturity. And one day, you'll get all three without having to explain why you deserve them. Have you ever heard the words, "You're better off without me," right after you started getting close to someone? At first, it sounds self-aware, like he's doing you a favor, like he's protecting you from something broken inside of him. It might even stir compassion in you. You want to fix it, soothe it, prove to him that he's wrong, that he's not too broken for love, that he's not too much for you. But that's where your heart gets trapped in a cycle of false hope. Because that phrase is rarely about saving you, it's often about avoiding growth. When someone says, "You're better off without me," they're really saying, "I don't want the responsibility of showing up for you." It's a way of exiting emotionally while looking like they care. It sounds gentle, but it leaves you questioning your worth. It plants seeds of confusion, keeping you emotionally tied to someone who has already chosen distance. Here's the truth. His self-doubt is not your assignment to fix. Emotionally unavailable men often carry internal shame, fear of failure, or deep-rooted beliefs that they're unlovable. When real connection surfaces, it touches those beliefs, and instead of working through them, they flee. Not because you're too much, but because closeness asks them to confront what they've spent years avoiding, their vulnerability. By saying you're better off, he gives himself permission to detach without facing the impact it has on you. It's a way of stepping back while still feeling noble. But it's not noble, it's another form of emotional abandonment disguised as protection. And here's what you must know. You don't need someone to step aside for your good. You need someone to step up for it. Love isn't built on withdrawal. It's built on presence, on mutual effort, on two people choosing to stay, even when it's hard. You are not better off without love. You're better off without confusion, without mixed signals, without emotional breadcrumbs that leave you starving for more. Let his words be clarity, not confusion. If he tells you he can't give you what you need, believe him. Not with bitterness, but with peace. Because your heart deserves someone who doesn't question whether they're good enough for you, but who rises into becoming the man who is. You don't have to save him. You just have to stop abandoning yourself trying to be the exception. That's not heartbreak. That's healing. And it begins the moment you believe you are already whole. Have you ever started to feel something real with someone, only to hear the words, "I'm just not ready for anything serious right now"? It stings, especially after the closeness you shared, the late night conversations, the emotional vulnerability, the physical connection. It all seemed to be building towards something meaningful, and suddenly, it's like he pulled the emergency brake just as things were getting deep. You might find yourself wondering, was I imagining it all? Did I move too fast? Should I have held back more? But here's the quiet truth no one tells you. This statement is not about timing, it's about capacity. When someone says they're not ready, they often mean they're not emotionally available. They may enjoy intimacy, affection, and connection, but only in doses that don't require emotional risk. Once the relationship begins to ask for consistency, depth, and real vulnerability, they step back, not because of you, but because of what they fear within themselves. Psychologically, this often stems from unhealed emotional wounds. Men who fear commitment or intimacy may use this phrase as a soft boundary, a way to keep you close enough to feel desired, but far enough to avoid responsibility. It's not always manipulation, it's often unconscious protection. For them, not ready is safer than being seen. But here's where your power comes in. This isn't your cue to wait, it's your cue to listen. He's telling you that he cannot offer you the relationship you deserve. And believing him is not weakness, it's wisdom. Too many women hear those words and stay, hoping their love will change his timing. But love cannot fix what someone isn't willing to face. Your needs are not inconvenient. Wanting clarity, consistency, and depth isn't asking too much, it's asking for maturity. And when someone can't meet that, the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to walk with grace, not resentment. Let this be your moment of clarity. You are not meant to wait in the shadow of someone's uncertainty. You are not here to audition for love, hoping to be chosen once he figures it out. You are here to be met fully, openly, without delay. And the man who is ready won't need convincing. He'll show up with certainty, not confusion, with presence, not excuses. So trust this truth. The relationship you want doesn't come through waiting. It comes through walking away from what doesn't rise to meet you. You're not being left behind. You're moving ahead toward the love that knows your worth the moment it sees you.